everyone, and welcome to Let's Talk MLOps. My name is Becky, and I'm on a mission to find out the latest trends, challenges, and prospects within machine learning, and with a particular focus on machine learning operations, or MLOps. Throughout this series, I'll be talking to experts within the field who will share their knowledge as well as advice for implementing, monitoring, and scaling successful machine learning practices. Hello, everyone, and welcome. I'm super excited to be joined today by Tom Titcombe, who is co-founder and CTO at Documatic, a search engine for your code base that provides code, insights, and analysis in response. Thank you so much for joining today, Tom, sharing your knowledge and your experience as well.
Yeah, thanks. Good to be here.
Awesome. So I think it would be really nice to start and hear a bit about Documatic a bit more, and what you guys do in more detail.
Yeah, sure. So we're an early stage dev tools startup. So we started in 2021, kind of right at the beginning of this kind of hype cycle on AI around language modeling. We've gone through a few iterations, but where we are at the moment is really trying to help teams, especially quite large, towards the more enterprise scale, really understand what's going on in their systems, where you
Yeah.
have very big microservice architecture. Teams are working on different parts of the code base, but really most issues come about by one person changing one part of this service, which goes through various parts, and then that breaks something. So as you mentioned, search engine, part of that really allowing teams using AI to ask just questions about what's happening or what is this bit doing, how does that relate to this other part of the system, to direct them to the right part of the code, pull out the right information for them. Really just using AI to help surface that information much more easily.
And does it help them? Is it accessible faster as well than it would be without, I'm guessing?
Yeah. I mean, that's the big thing, right? Where you're a team, as going from a junior developer to senior developer, you one of the things you notice is that you just have this good mental model of where parts of the code base are, and so just without AI, I know to go to this part of the file because I've been here 100 times before. But that kind of breaks down a lot when you're working on at scale because things change so frequently, and so that's why we're kind of helping people build up that mental model, because they don't need to know and remember this is the exact file for this thing. Just
Yes.
type in a question, search, get pointed to the right bit of the code across systems, and we'll pull out the relevant information as well.
Oh, awesome. Well, thank you for going into more detail there. It would be nice as well, I think, to start with a bit about your personal journey as well, maybe into machine learning, maybe what came before, how did it start, and how did you get into it?
Yeah, it was kind of by accident a bit, to be honest. I studied machine learning for my 4th year at university, so my master's degree. I was doing physics before, but wanted something a bit more practical, and chose machine learning because somebody I was friends with just was very into it, and I thought, well, I had nothing else, so
Fair
on a
play.
whim
Why
applied
not?
machine. Just completely on a whim, and only really after I'd applied. This was at Imperial that I did my 4th year. So I was on a 1-year machine learning course there. This was 2016. So the deep learning kind of era had started to take off. You'd had AlphaGo that year, and a couple of other, like the Atari stuff was a couple of years before. So the reinforcement learning was quite big at the time, but still, looking back on it now, 2016 to now, is a huge gap between then. So that kind of was the foundation. After that, I worked in a data science consultancy for a bit, so for a couple of years. Just various data science, machine learning problems, bit of software as well to gain that kind of base. And then during 2020, over COVID, I met my co-founder of Documatic. We started a few different things. So there was a startup where we were using AI to analyze football matches. And like pull out data like using computer vision to pull out where players are on the pitch, detect offsides, player movements, statistics like that. That wasn't successful for a number of reasons, not least because during COVID nobody was watching or playing sports, and so investors didn't want to invest in it, and there was no activity. There's no way for us to really get the data at that time. But everything like this is a building opportunity. So we kind of took some of the context, took some of the workings that we did for that into Documatic, which is obviously a very different space, but it was something we'd seen before, even when working on this project, the sports project, where we were trying to speak to teams, but before they obviously wanted to really understand how the code was working before they would let us use it on their sports teams or their data. And so trying to convey that information of what is this code doing is a hard problem. So that's how we kind of came through.
Cool. And Documatic as an organization, turning to MLOps slightly, how far along the sort of maturity level or process or implementation, if already, would you say you are at right now?
Yeah, it's very sparse, right? So I think being a startup, you always have to optimize for it's the tech debt at quite a large scale. That problem of speed is your most important asset here. Building quickly. You don't have much capital, so you can't invest in the time to build things. You don't have the human capital to actually maintain things. Obviously, so at the moment, we're very, very lean. We have built our own models a lot for the search and the other features that we're building, which we're hosting them and maintaining them, but we don't have I think if you compared all of your guests, we're probably on the lower end of infrastructure in terms of consistent data pipelines, retraining, everything like that. It's a lot more a lot more manual than we would like. We're doing a lot of data validation. This is probably like our most automated part, the data validation on search results coming in. So as we're tweaking the models, for search. So we have a question, running it through our models to find bits of code or bits of information in the code base that are most relevant. But it's not just it's not a simple just drag and drop. Obviously, there's a multi-stage process to this. Even after the machine learning aspect of that, in terms of how we rank those, or, if we do any re-ranking of results, or how we compare results based on the context of the question from previous questions, things like that. And so, a lot of the, we're constantly running experiments to tweak the specific things we can do to improve results. Obviously, that relies a lot on kind of like pulling in user questions, or automated analysis of that. It's not the most robust system in the world, but it works for the most part.
Well, that's the main thing, right? And this is only the beginning, as you said. I mean, what is it like then? And what would you say MLOps is like at the scrappy end, as how you said it to me before, like manual, right? You've mentioned it's highly like manual. Are there other things you could point out, or maybe that you could say about what it's like to be at that stage?
Yeah, and I think one of the big challenges really is that you don't have the luxury to have the. It depends for us where having the absolute best model, that's not the market advantage for us. Like having a model which converts questions into code embeddings, how we do the search, slightly better than other people. That's not where we're getting our edges, through the additional features and how teams interact with that. So from that perspective, because of the business value of it, we can afford to not have the leading model, or it's not so important to have the most up-to-date data sets, and so we can also start to make use of third-party APIs from modeling, rather than having to kind of accrue proprietary data sets as our single goal, which is I mean, I think that's the big bonus really, making use of these third-party tools wherever you can get them, is a key thing. And I think when you're starting out, you shouldn't shy away from it at all. There isn't, you can gain a lot of value, great deal of value very quickly from just making things, plug and play with APIs or whatever. And then it works great for V1, V2. Over time, we'll get more investment, build out the team, and then you can replace those out and then start to build up your internal capabilities.
Gotcha. And are there any specific challenges you found so far? Or what would be the biggest challenges, maybe? I know you have mentioned one or two, but what would you say is the biggest?
I think the challenge for us, so when we started this company in 21, so the big explosion in large language models was just happening at that point. You didn't have ChatGPT, so GPT-3 was the leading API. You had some paid APIs like Cohere, OpenAI that you could. They're more expensive then, and so we did need to put a lot of focus into our own models at that time. Like things have changed very rapidly over the last year and a bit, where now we could afford to just use out-of-the-box models, as many open source models. But back then we really had to put effort into training our own stuff. And the investment in terms of time to build these, run these very large models on very little funds is that's a challenge when you also have a whole software framework to build up around your product as well. So as I said, it's not just, oh, we've built this model and we're just going to host this machine learning model and then people access it via API and we're done. We have this model and we have to put all this effort into the software as well. So I think the challenge was handling this stuff ourselves, basically. When you're a small team, you don't have the capacity to lean on a dedicated MLOps expert or a DevOps expert or a data engineer, which is just the nature of being in startups anyway, where you are doing every single role, even the ones that you don't really want to do.
Yeah, no, true. That is a fair point. And what about any other bits of advice that you might have for other organizations who are in those early stages? Is there anything you haven't mentioned so far that could be useful for them to know based on your experience so far?
Yeah, I think the key one is to not go. I suppose it's context dependent, but if you're building out that initial AI capability, you shouldn't look to comparators in terms of size of this organization has this huge AI culture. That is something you have to build up over time. It's not just as simple as let's just let's create an MLOps team that's world class. It does kind of have to be throughout the organization. And so I wouldn't balk at using these quick methods to really set it up. Use third-party APIs or open source models where you can. You don't need to jump straight in with accruing huge proprietary data sets, because it's about proving value, iterating really quickly, and then build that up. And it will come. The expertise and the framework will come over time. There's that's on the organization side. On the more on the personal side, and I think a key thing is that, for me at least, I see as we grow, like we will have a fully dedicated machine learning team. I'm sure people whose whole job it is to maintain these models, but for the most part, I think what being an AI company means at this point is that everybody has the capacity to build and use AI models and apply it into software without being a dedicated I'm AI, I'm software, right? Just in the same way that MLOps and there's this weird kind of border that's consistently changing because things are moving so fast between what is MLOps, what is DevOps, what is just software. And the ideal world, let's say take DevOps, nobody wants to do DevOps. The ideal world is we just build our models, we click deploy, and then it's done. And I think MLOps might be going the same way. There are different challenges.
Mm.
But in terms of the actual application, you want your software developers to be able to have the grammar, have the understanding to be able to make use of AI where they can. Then you need to be able to move freely between the roles without being able to very rigidly say I'm AI. Which doesn't mean that every software developer needs to know how an LLM works. They just need to know the basics. They need to know, how to prepare data, how to assess performance, how to build it into software.
So is it quite cross-functional teams then, and skills? Would you say?
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. I think that's very crucial. Like at our size, we're 5 people. Everybody is working. They're just all software engineers. They work on ML, they work on deployment. But it's very cross-functional. But as you scale, you want that as well, because I see there's still a lot of unknowns how things will progress in the next couple of years. I do think it'll be very integrated. I think that organizations will have need in cases for their own models, where you will need people with like very heavy domain knowledge to kind of eke every bit of performance out of them. But for the most part, it will be as simple as importing modules in your software, using them, and just building them in. Rather than having like highly fragmented software expertise.
Gotcha. And I suppose that may already to an extent answer this question, but I wanted to ask as well what, like you said with a team, did you say 5, 5 total? What does MLOps mean, and what does MLOps look like when you don't have a dedicated machine learning team in an organization?
Yeah, it's messy. That's the thing. I think your ideal state is obviously completely hands-off automated. I make a change here, and I've got this really nice suite of tests that will kind of benchmark performance. Then it will benchmark against this data set, this test data set we're constantly updating, and when it fit, that's the ideal. And we don't really have much of that. The MLOps is, we have these models, we've got monitoring on their performance in case anything is wrong right now that we need to address, like production alerting. But really, for the most part, it's a lot of it is it's manual, it's time consuming, it's taking feedback from users, more qualitative about how they're experiencing the product, and then performing the analysis on user data ad hoc as and when we need, rather than it being like a fully automated, fully ideal quantitative breakdown. So it's probably the least it's not a fully up and running factory. But
that's all part of the
building
process, right?
building piece by piece. Same with DevOps, right? With just our normal deployments, we have this ideal, but for a very long time we didn't have automated deployments because you have other things to focus on. So it's a process. We're building it out, conflicting priorities, and we'll get there.
Awesome. An area of interest that you mentioned to me as well is data privacy as it relates to machine learning. Could you tell us a bit about your thoughts on that, attitudes towards privacy, third-party APIs, and anything else that comes into that area?
Yes, yeah, I think so. I was quite involved for a couple of years before I started Documatic with a number of groups around privacy and machine learning. And it has, what we noticed really at the start of when we built the company, there was a lot of hesitation around where is my code going when you run it through these models. That's why it's so important for us to host in the start. But we've noticed quite a big shift. This is obviously anecdotal, but we personally have noticed a shift in attitudes towards that, because the assumption from company that ChatGPT has been such a turning point in how pervasive it's been, that think the assumption of a lot of people is, well, our data is going to go through one of these models, which is either owned by Microsoft or Google or Facebook. And so people are asking, and as well because they are seeing how valuable it is and easy to apply in their lives for a number of reasons, that people are a lot more willing to think about, okay, well, what's the outcome of this if I am happy for this data to run through. So from a data privacy, the challenge from a company's perspective is that we're seeing lower burdens of entry, lower barriers to entry from that. I mean, but what that means for for individuals or for engineers as well, yeah, it's hard to see where we are going. We definitely don't have the time to really get into the legislation on MLOps and AI that is kind of going through EU and in the US at the moment.
Is there a lot of change happening?
Yeah, so the EU have, I don't actually know what state it's in right at the moment, but they've got some legislation proposed. Again, I don't know the specific grammar of it. It's you know, based on the time that it took GDPR to come into effect, it will be, you know, 2020, late 2020s, I think, before we'll see anything really. And there will be a lot of industry pushback from a number of different ways. You've got OpenAI, who, being the people at the top right now, are very happy for there to be legislation because that kind of cements their position. So a lot of conflicting interests there.
Interesting.
And yeah, I don't think it's very clear at all. I wouldn't be able to place a good bet on what that means for applying machine learning, really. You know, one way it could go, I think I mentioned, so we've got a couple of our employees are they're not from the UK, and so there very well could be a world in which the laws that countries are rushing to enact means that I can access these models and I can run this data, and this data can go through me and my part of the organization, but these employees will be barred from making use of that or from handling this data, which just presents additional challenges, obviously. That's one potential it could go from. So I think model access, data access could become quite segmented. That's a risk, but I mean, yeah, it's a little while off until it becomes a reality, I think. And it might not be as well. We might, I very well could see as well. We just kind of give up on it as completely as well, and everybody's just happy to let all of their data run through these models. It's just something to be aware of for like the big future, the big picture of it.
No, it's good, and it's in such a rapidly evolving field. I feel like it is important to try and be aware as much as possible of the things that could happen or that are already happening. Okay, cool. And as a small organization or small company, in terms of attracting talent, whether they're MLOps engineers or machine learning engineers or software engineers or people who do a bit of everything, are there any specific challenges you've come by or any advice you can give to other companies of a similar size in terms of, you know, finding the right people?
Yeah, that is a challenge. I think for us in the UK, particularly, wages generally as well, like as being the main attractor, are not competitive with the US. There's just so much money there. As in like any software, any kind of tech role would get like a 2x markup in the US. The main competitive factor, I think, for us, we've managed to attract a lot of great talent. Part of the domain, you know, just having the interesting, the challenging problems to work on.
Yeah.
That is a big thing. You know, if you're, I think people, especially, you know, younger people in the workforce now, are a lot more focused on what they're actually working towards than than previously. So if I can work on some cool AI in, I don't know, for helping improve agriculture or climate change, that will take preference for a lot of people over some cool AI at a hedge fund. You know, and so obviously it's domain specific, and if you are in the finance space, then you can't really change much about that. That's, I think,
Yeah.
but at least giving people the autonomy to really work at the cutting edge is kind of the key thing here. For a long time, while I went into the workforce, you'd have many roles. Well, still to this day, where it's it's a machine learning role, but really what you're doing is just doing kind of quite basic data analysis, data science, and they're using machine learning as a to fluff
Like a
up the role a
buzzword.
bit. Yeah.
It really varies, doesn't it, company to company,
Completely.
what the definition means, not only of MLOps, but of engineer, of data engineer, of data scientist. It really seems to vary, doesn't it? So I suppose that's all the more reason for people who are looking for jobs to look into what the role actually entails and try to find out.
Exactly. Yeah. Like what models are you going to be using? What actually kind of how cutting edge really is that? And I think that's the main thing. Really make it interesting, make it exciting, give people autonomy for that, to be able to apply it. And AI, MLOps, all of this is moving so quickly that I think you really want to empower your team to. Well, part of the reason why you said it means different things to different companies is because there is no established standard. We don't really know what the best way for to build MLOps pipelines at scale. And so a good way to attract and retain talent is to encourage them to really enable the team to be the standard, to be the leaders, right? And to seek out it's a very, very quickly evolving field. So enable your teams to really soak that in. Conferences, reading groups, take on all the new stuff, apply it at speed, and then it's a good opportunity, really, to be honest. At the moment, things are moving so quickly that there is no good standard, there is no right way. So both from an individual and a company perspective, if you give the right people the right authority to take action and to learn and apply things that they learn, there's a lot of opportunity there.
I mean, that's exciting because at an individual level as well, that gives a lot of space for people to innovate, to explore, to conduct their own research. It sounds like that having the autonomy to do all of those things, and maybe that is advice for other companies, how to attract talent, give them that autonomy. Is that fair to say? Give them that space to be innovative and explore, right? This evolving field.
Absolutely, and that kind of compounds with the availability of open models, open data sets that we have right now, where you can go from idea to proof of concept within a couple of weeks. Documatic is actually the first proof of concept that we got our first round of funding from, was done over 5 days. So you can now go very quickly from I have an idea to this is a thing that we can build a team around, and we can deploy a product here. And I guarantee you across companies across the UK, across the world, junior engineers in for their first year, second year, normally not given much opportunity for things, but they're in general very switched on with what's happening, what's available. And there's a lot of ideas that aren't really being allowed to kind of take flight.
Okay.
I mean, that's a general comment, but it really applies to the whole.
No, of course.
ML data space.
Awesome. Okay, I think we only have time for one more question. And it would be nice to end on what, maybe either related to MLOps or doesn't have to be anything related to AI. What do you feel excited about at the minute? Is there anything really cool or interesting that you feel passionate about right now?
In the ML space, it's hard because there's so much going on, and keeping up with all of it.
You can say two things.
Very difficult. More that I'm so behind on my reading.
That's fine too.
Yeah. I think the main thing for me is we're going through a few cycles at the moment. Obviously, a few years ago was reinforcement learning. That looked very promising with AlphaGo, and there's a few iterations on there on various games. Some advancements in more open games like Minecraft as well. This has obviously been overshadowed by large language models over the last couple of years, ChatGPT and that kind of generation. And I think there's been but basically the intersection of these two things, particularly as being able to using agents to explore worlds and combining that with LLM capability to really, well, I say really, to give a good approximation of understanding the output of it and coming up with responses and actions next. I think the intersection of these two things is going to be quite exciting. Quite worrisome in some regards, I think.
Okay.
Yeah.
Why? What?
So I think this was in the GPT-4 paper. There was one, some of the tests that the team did to check its security was giving the model access to a bank account and then some objective of using this money, go off and do this thing. And it's, yeah, I mean, you could see the whole the gray blob idea that you might have heard of, like optimize for paperclips. I'm butchering that. I'm just build me a factory or something, and then the AI will just optimize for that and not take steamroll through towns to build a factory. That sort of idea, where by combining these technologies, it could be simple, could be trivial in the near future, to just here's my bank account API, and here's access to the internet, and here's some objective of, I don't know, that seems trivial, and by interacting with the world in a number of ways, in a quite unconstrained way, I think there's there's a number of things that could go wrong. It will build some interesting products for us. It will make things better, but I think
I need to be careful.
This is really vague. I realize that I'm just kind of rambling a little bit, but yeah.
There's always time for a bit of rambling. That's absolutely fine.
And I think overall there's a number of for this sides of the coin, right? It's overall I think a good thing for us that these exist. Some very obvious applications that will be coming out this year, probably, if not next year, which are in the sci-fi realm of, you have this very interactive personal assistant that you can just say, I need to book a date night, go do it for me, and it knows what you and your partner like, and it will book the right restaurant, and if that one's busy, then it will do
very Black Mirror-y.
Very, very Black Mirror-y. Good when it goes well, not so good when it doesn't. So
well, it's exciting either
way. This was the question you asked of what I'm looking forward to. I think I'm looking forward to seeing what happens. It'll be interesting.
Yeah, because I mean, there are always going to be dangers and downsides to any new technology, right? And anything new that's kind of unknown. But I agree with you. I still find it kind of exciting in a, like when you're excited, maybe before going on a roller coaster, I don't know, that kind of excitement of, wow, this is so cool. And yes, okay, there's a little bit of danger in there, but as long as there's eventually strict legislator and maybe rules to make sure that it is as safe as possible, then hopefully it'll be okay. But I guess we'll see, right? We'll see what happens. If we turn into a full dystopian sort of Black Mirror style society soon or not. But that's really cool. I'm afraid that is all we have time for today. Thank you so much, Tom, for joining, sharing your so much wisdom and thoughts and what you're excited about. Everyone watching as well, I hope you really enjoyed today's episode, and I hope to see you again soon. Bye-bye. Let's end with a little bit about Logic. At Logic, we recruit specifically within the machine learning engineering and research fields in the UK, Canada, and the US. We pride ourselves on our innovative, community-led approach and having a deep knowledge and understanding of the roles that we recruit for. That's one of the reasons why I've started this podcast. If you're looking for your next professional challenge, or on the other hand, you might be an organization looking to expand your machine learning team, then please feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn and send me a message. Alternatively, you can send me an email to becky@logic.com. Let's set up a call for a chat, or we can meet in person for a coffee.